Hello and welcome back to Hydroponics Daily, your go-to podcast for everything soilless cultivation. Bit of a strange day today at Eutrema HQ. We're finding more and more that most of our sales are coming from non-horticultural customers, obscure industrial end uses of our products, which is strange because this year we've really put an effort into marketing. I mean, I've been doing a podcast every day for hydroponics, and yet hydroponics is it's on its knees in the UK at the moment, but even things like lawn care and stuff, it's taken a back seat because of the high temperatures. So water treatment, all sorts of crazy products we've been looking at. But we're going to crack on with hydroponics anyway, because it's a passion for everyone who works at Eutrema. And we had some interesting inquiries today. One of our customers, James, he was saying that he'd been listening to the podcast, but he'd been struggling to work out the difference between salicylic acid and silica. And he's not alone there. Lots of customers, this is a big issue for, because we sell two products and they're not fertilizers. And so people often get confused because the name sounds similar. Silica and silicon are about cell wall strength, making the plant physically harder and able to resist environmental stresses. Salicylic acid is just eliciting plant defense mechanisms. So it's like activating plant defense mechanisms. That's how it works. And with that also comes like secondary metabolism, flavor enhancement and things like that. So I put the analogy that it's like salicylic acid is to silica what cats are to cars. They're completely different. They just sound very similar. So if you learn in English for the first time, you might get cat and car mixed up all the time. And if you're not an absolute chemist whiz, then you might get salicylic acid and silica mixed up just because they sound similar. But think of silica as sand, making the plant physically hard. Okay, so that's how we look at it. Second thing that's been going on today is really struggling to get hold of mineral wool slabs in 1 meter in the UK. So rock wool, things like that. If anyone knows anyone at Grodan, can you bang their head against a brick wall? Because I've been trying to get hold of Grodan and Saint Germain or whatever the other company is that makes them. I can't get hold of 1 meter rock wool slabs for love nor money. I've even put an order in with a grow shop who just took my money and said, well, you'll get it when we can get it. Seems like no distributors can get hold of them. Grodan are not responding to any of my emails. This seems to be a theme at the moment in hydroponics. I went to Green Tech, got loads of interesting flyers and business cards from interesting companies and said, send me details about your technology. And no one bothered to reply. Maybe one cocoa company. And just thinking, you spent all that money exhibiting at Green Tech, tens of thousands of pounds at least. Like, it's not a cheap show. And then you don't even bother to follow up with leads. It's bonkers. So yeah, I just need some 1 meter rockwool slabs to set up our NFT system. I'm willing to pay money for them. Yeah. So today's subject in Hydroponics Dailies is Karrikins, which are chemicals that promote the germination of seeds. Said I was going to be the next podcast about this 2 days ago, and then I got sidetracked by my hydroponics toolkit that I've created. But I'm going to do it today. Before we get into the meat of the podcast episode, though, we've got to ask the general public, what do they know what hydroponics means? And today it's Harry from Warrington. Does Harry from Warrington know what hydroponics means? Let's find out. What is hydroponics?
I don't know.
Have a guess.
Like something to do with water and plants.
I'll probably give Harry 5 out of 10 for that really enthusiastic answer. Let's get on to the subject of today's episode, and that is Karrikins, which are a class of chemical. They're strictly classed as a plant growth regulator, and they're found in the smoke of burning plant material. And they stimulate seed germination really well and plant development because they mimic a hormone in plants called strigolactone. And I've not talked about strigolactone yet, but they're hormones that help with. They're also involved in the symbiotic relationship with mycorrhizal fungi, and they're involved in branching. A lot of branching, like cytokinins, a bit like cytokinins, they're involved in branching. So they were discovered in, I think it was in 2004. So very, very late as far as plant hormone analysis goes, that. And they were actually discovered in plants called fire followers. And I think it's mainly in the southern hemisphere, Australia, South Africa, and places like that, where there's seeds of certain plants that just will not germinate unless they're given a smoke treatment. So it's been known for a while that smoke helps these plants germinate, but it was actually until 2004 that they actually isolated one of these Karrikins and were able to look at its chemical structure. And so any plant material that's burnt under the right conditions will produce Karrikins. And as I say, there's certain plants in the fynbos flora of South Africa and the bush of Australia that just won't germinate without them. The absolute requirement. Most seeds, they just need water, heat, and oxygen to germinate. Maybe some plants require light, like lettuce, but these one absolute requirement. And so they found that these plants have an absolute requirement. But what's also interesting is that seeds of a number of other plant families will also respond to Karrikin signaling and will improve their germination. So tomato, lettuce, many tree species. And so you can use Karrikins to promote germination if you're struggling to get your seeds to germinate, especially if they've got low vigor, so they're not germinating very fast, or if they're on the edge of viability, then really have a look at giving them a treatment of Karrikins. Now, how can you do this? Can you buy Karrikins? Can you make Karrikins? And the answer to that is, to both of those questions, is yes. You can buy filter paper that is infused with Karrikin-rich smoke for germinating seeds, but you can also buy liquid smoke. And liquid smoke is used on barbecues and used by barbecue enthusiasts for producing smoky flavors. And that actually contains Karrikins, and you could put some liquid smoke, there's a brand called Colgin, in some water, and that would improve germination. And it's not just germination rate that is improved. It's also found in the model plant species of Arabidopsis that Karrikins reduce the height of the hypocotyl and increase the size of the cotyledon. So basically, your seed leaves get bigger, and the stem, which you want to keep as small as possible to prevent your seeds from getting leggy, is actually reduced. So a double win there for Karrikins. So definitely something to look at if you're struggling for germination. And again, in that model plant species, Arabidopsis, they found genes that are responsible for the signaling of Karrikins. And so it's definitely not just a thing where it's just adding a fertilizer, it's having a mild effect. There's actually a genetic key, lock and key type response of the plants to this treatment with Karrikins. 6 different Karrikins have been discovered, and they are KAR1 or CAR1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And how many did I say? Trying to find it here. Yeah, 6 Karrikins, but the first 4 are the main, most active ones. It'd be interesting to know if they have effects other than just on germination, because we said that these strigolactone hormones, they're also involved in signaling with mycorrhiza, and they also have an effect on branching. So could you apply strigolactines to improve branching and improve the ability for plants to form mycorrhizal connections? I'll do a bit of research into that and get back to you. And I'll talk more about strigolactones in a future episode. They're quite an interesting one because they're first isolated from a parasitic plant that attacks cotton plants. So that's quite unusual. The Asiatic witchweed. And so, yeah, let's talk about that in another episode, though. Today we talked about Karrikins. Let's get some. Anyone got any liquid smoke? Let me know. Send me a sample. We can test it on various seeds. And if you've got a hydroponic plant, see if that has ever been tested. Search for that one and see if it's ever been tested for Karrikins. If you have been sent this episode because you struggle with germination and the person sent it you thought that you might be interested in trying Karrikins, then you owe that person a really good birthday present or Christmas present next time, because they've just massively improved your ability to germinate seeds. And if you would like to share this with anybody, just click the share button on your podcast provider and send it to as many different growers of seeds and different hydroponic crops as you know, and help grow the Hydroponics Daily listenership. That would be fantastic. Thank you very much for listening. And until tomorrow, that's been Hydroponics Daily. Goodbye.